my other question relates to the work that you've told us this morning QBE is doing with its oil and gas customers as they transition. Australian Ethical participates in the Climate Action 100 Plus program of engagement on climate issues. Climate risk involves investors managing over $50 trillion worth of assets. They produced a great piece of research this year which reviewed the progress of companies aligning to how companies were doing aligning their businesses with the transition needed to fulfil the objectives of the Paris Agreement. And probably the key call out from the research was concerns about the transition of the oil and gas sector. It showed that the world's 30 largest oil and gas companies, including QBE's customers, are all planning capital expenditure which is not aligned with the Paris Agreement, with that pathway to limit warming to 2 degrees and 1.5 degrees. Not everything, not all the new CapEx, but for the overwhelming majority of companies, it was over 50% of their new CapEx. So we're talking about new infrastructure, new oil and gas infrastructure. At the same time as companies are doing this, we're seeing increased government commitments, most notably, and I think most relevantly to QBE, the US has just announced a target of 50% reduction in their carbon emissions by 2030. So you've said this morning you're working with your customers. I guess research is showing us that customers aren't transitioning. I'm just trying to understand, there does seem to be a disconnect. Your risk framework, I guess, is sending a pretty clear signal that you're not going to refuse to underwrite companies or new infrastructure until 2030 and indeed until 2040 for diversified companies which have up to 30% of their revenue from oil and gas. So I wonder if you've referenced the environmental statement and you've done that at previous AGMs indicating that that's an additional lens. I guess we rely on the public statements and commitments and indication signals that the company gives, and the risk framework looks to us, and we suspect to the oil and gas sector, like you get a free pass until 2030 and 2040.
Mr. Palmer, as I've mentioned, it's not a cliff at 2030. We will work with our customers. If we find that our customers are not on the path, and we don't believe that they are on the path as we work with them to that 2030 period, we will actually be talking to them about that. We may choose not to underwrite them ahead of that time. What we are saying is there is a line in the sand at 2030, but it's not we set and forget until 2030. We will work with our customers to satisfy ourselves that they are on that path almost from this day forward.
Thank you, Chair.